We're going to get going. All right, so I was saying a moment ago that my presentation is a little bit different in format than Tina's, which we felt was one of the strengths of our program, is we are quite different in the way we present information, and yet we have a really, really similar background belief and core feelings about how things should be shared and how important it is to be to continue with integrity. So I'm going to go through 4 or 5 myths, I can't even remember how many, and I'll ask you a few questions, things to consider, what to plan for, and we'll just discuss social media, a little bit of a history, not too much, not enough to bore you, but just enough so that we have a good perspective of how we're going to move forward. So before we start the program, we're going to bust a few myths. And the first one, myth number 1, social media is a fad. I hear this all the time. I hear people saying, oh, it's just like anything else. It's just going to fade away. It's just a fad. Why are we even worrying about it? This is ridiculous. I'm sorry. It's not a fad. It will change. It will adjust. It will be something that looks different in 5 years from what it looks like today. But it's not going to go away anytime soon. Digital media is something that has become a new type of voice for all businesses and all humans, actually, most humans anyway. And it's not something that we can just hide under the covers and hope it's not going to be there tomorrow. And I do understand why a lot of people go through social media exhaustion. And because we're putting this course, you're wanting to put your course online, some people say, well, I don't need to buy into social media. I can just have my website and a blog. No, you can't, because there's no way to connect with people from just those two things. It's just like putting up a sign in the middle of the wilderness, but it's only the last sign. Hey, we're here, but all the other signs that were leading off of the highway aren't there. So whether you love it or you love to hate it, some aspect of social media or facet of it will be here to stay. And so it's best to figure out what works for you and how you want to be represented. So I noticed in some of Tina's notes, she mentioned things like, where's your home? And that's kind of the one thing I want you to start thinking about right now is if you're on social media personally, where's your comfort zone? What are things that you don't mind doing with friends? I understand that a lot of people don't like to consider the jump to business with social, and it is a little different and it can be a bit confusing. But right now, if you wanted to share something with a friend and you use social media, what's your comfort zone? And if you don't use social media, write down how you like to share information. Do you like to pick up the phone? Are you still someone who loves to send a handwritten letter? Do you send photographs? Do you post photos on Facebook of family and friends? Do you send a long email? Where is your comfort zone in communicating with others? What's your happy place? Where do you like to know? I mean, I used to be a phone person. I used to be somebody who loved getting phone calls from people. And I do remember in high school being on the phone with my best friend for hours, even though we only lived 20 minutes away from each other and could see each other at any time. It was a comfort zone. So I want you to spend a few seconds right now, just grab your pen again and just find where your comfort zone is in terms of social media, in terms of communication, pardon me. And then we'll be able to help you as we move through the course, develop different ways of applying your comfort to the platform that's going to serve you best in terms of finding your community. So just make a few notes on where you like to communicate, how you feel when you're in different, and if it's on social media and it's certain platforms, be really specific. Because I know it's funny because I work with a lot of other social media coaches and marketers, and I have a good friend and she is a trainer and she trains in LinkedIn, and my happy place has always been Instagram. And actually that's not true. I was a bit of a late bloomer on Instagram, but I love it now. It's my favorite spot. And when she was talking about her Instagram account, she just freezes, and yet she can train anybody to have an amazing LinkedIn account. And you use different parts of your brain for it. It's a little bit of a different process. It's a different style. One's more, buttoned down and serious, and the other one's a little bit more laid back and visual. So think about where you like to live. The second myth, I'm just going to make sure I'm actually, my blank gallery space. Oops, sorry. I don't know why it's doing that. Oh, this is so true. I just took this picture for this class. I'm pretty happy with it, actually. Myth 2, fluffy and sweet wins. I know that we've seen it. I know that there's mass piles of it everywhere. It's that cotton candy account that everybody is sharing and loves. And so you think, well, they have 10 million gajillion followers. They must be what I have to do. It must be the way to go. It's not. I just want to reassure you that we firmly believe that the most important thing that you do is be yourself, because cotton candy is, yeah, it's sweet and it smells great and it even tastes great for a really short time, but then it disappears into nothing and it's not good for you. So we don't want your business to disappear into thin air, and there's no point having content that looks pretty and smells great and looks appealing and it draws in millions of people if they're not the people you want to attract. Number one, they all go away as soon as something changes and you're no longer fluffy and sweet the way you were telling them you were. And it ties into what Tina was saying about story. Your story has to be what you put out there. Yes, you get to choose what parts of you you're putting out, what face, but if it's something that doesn't resonate with you and it's not the real you, I know I found this when I first had my, when I was starting to do Instagram for Ampersand. It was about a few months in after the business had started, and I was really feeling like I wasn't growing fast enough. And it was a brand new Instagram account. And here I was, a social media consultant, and I only had a few hundred followers because I had just started it. And I'm going, how am I going to do this? Like, I can't have clients believe that I can help them with their social media if I've only got a few hundred followers. And I do believe that social media takes time, and I don't believe in tricks, but there are things you can do to help yourself. So I decided I was going to look a certain way online, and I started to mimic some of the other accounts that my daughters thought were my teenage daughters thought were very elegant and of the moment, and they had lots of followers, and they had these beautiful flat lays, which is where they take a photograph from above, and the colors were very pale and white, and it was glamorous and it was lovely, but it was not me at all. And so what happened was I really struggled with posting. It felt like work. It felt like a chore. It felt like I would never have enough time to get all the posts out. I was madly trying to find content that suited this theme that I had just invented out of thin air. It didn't feel like me at all. And so last Christmas, over the Christmas holidays, I always have these epiphanies over Christmas, but last Christmas holiday, I went, you know what? I love my life. I love my business. I'm proud of the way I do business. I'm proud of how my artistic self shows up in my company. I'm just going to start posting my pictures that look like me and are me and are parts of my life that I want to share as a business. And all of a sudden, it was no work at all to gather followers, because I wasn't just being cotton candy. People know that it smells good and they know that it tastes good, but you don't want cotton candy every day. It's just a once in a while thing.
Can I jump in here, DG?
Yes.
Okay. I think what's so awesome about what you just said is like one of the end games for us is that you love your business, like you love your online business, that it never feels like that thing I do.
I love it.
Right?
It has to be like your kid.
It
You
has
have
to
to be angry at it sometimes, frustrated with it sometimes, but the bottom line is, if you're going to commit to it and if it's going to work,
yeah,
you gotta love it.
And I really want to be clear about, like, your online business is like, it's got to feel like your offline business. And I know that the only thing that's different is the technology is different, like the interface is different, but it's not this extra appendage that you have, or this thing you have to serve. I love how you said that it feels like work. We don't want it to feel like work. It needs to feel like your business. And so I just love the way you articulated the integration of it.
And are you not proud of this photo? that I
Aww.
remember. This whole concept just came up through a conversation that Tina and I had the other day. And as soon as I said it, we went, yeah, that is one of the images we want people to remember. And so, funny little aside, I'm doing a keto diet right now, so I'm not allowed to eat sugar, and I freaking love cotton candy. We went to a movie the other night, and I bought it just for the photo shoot.
Aww.
The things you do for your business, right?
The things you do.
It works. It's a good image. So fluffy and sweet doesn't always win, but you being you does. And remember, and we're going to talk about this more when we talk about gathering an audience in the course, we want to attract the people that actually know, like, and trust us. And that's just another step in your business being a joy and something that is part of your life, not something that's just an add-on. All right. What's the next one? She's so cute. Myth number 3, people buy stuff. People buy courses, people buy products, people buy services. No, they don't. And this is the biggest myth out there. In actual fact, we buy people. People buy people. Building that trust and allowing yourself to be vulnerable and open and honest and transparent will attract more people to you than any sales pitch or any gimmick or any trick or any technique you can learn in terms of building your online community. There is nothing more powerful than building a human connection. It is the one thing. So here's where the history lesson comes in. I'm going to take you back a little bit, way back actually, to medieval times, back when we used to have the marketplaces. And there was 4 things that drove the marketplace. 4 things. One was that it was personal and interactive. People loved to go catch up with the latest gossip, learn a little bit more about their neighbors, learn a bit more about what was happening with the wench that worked at the local pub, all these things. And I say that not in a derogatory way, but it was actually, the name of the woman working at the pub. The immediacy of it. If you bought something and you didn't like it, you knew, and you were able to tell somebody right away. So if somebody purchased your apples and they were horribly unripe and not at all what you promised, everyone at the marketplace was going to hear about it. So 1, it's interactive. 2, it's immediate. Feedback is immediate. And you know what to correct. As a seller and as a buyer, I'm going to go back there unless my problem is solved. Number 3, it was all word of mouth. Everybody was able to find out, hey, is so-and-so on the level? If I'm going to buy, wheels for my cart from that guy's shop, are they going to work? Are they going to last a long time? So that quality check was there automatically. Did you get what you were promised? And it's amazing how powerful that is. Just those 3 things alone. The 4th part of the puzzle is that we actually, as humans, have a primal need to connect with other humans. In order to survive, we need to see other human people. Human people as opposed to human animals. I'm not sure what I meant there. So it's really important for us to be able to connect with other humans. In fact, it's a primary driver. And that is the reason that social media has become such an insanely addictive and abused and misused part of our society. Now, we're here to learn how to use social media for good, not evil. So how do we take that power of social media and harness it? Let's just talk about social media for a second. It's exactly the same needs. We had 100 years in between the medieval marketplaces up to a little bit further in history, where we had nothing but TV ads, billboards, print materials, magazines. Those were our ways of connection. It actually pulled us back into our caves and away from other humans. There was very little connection. There was a lot of false advertising. There was a lot of times where we felt incredibly alone. So we've now come full circle back to the marketplace. And so instead of it being person to person, face to face in real life, we've got this face to face connection online. And it is a beautiful way to get through to people if you have a business that you want to share, not to the person down the street, but to hundreds of people around the world. How else can you reach that many people? And Tina was great when she said, it's about building it in a sustainable way. Well, if you are presenting your online story cake in a way that's thought out, strategic, and you're able to reach that many people, it's completely sustainable because it's real. It's not fluff like the last slide. It's real you, and you're just able to multiply and amplify that to so many more people. It's a beautiful system if you honor it. And you remember, it's got to be personal and interactive. So what can you do to make your business more human and accessible? What can you do to make your online offering more you and more easy for people to connect with you? How can you take advantage of that number two, that immediacy? How can you let people know, and it's that urgency that Tina was talking about, what is it that you can do to create that immediate feedback? What are you creating in your business right now that makes you easy to respond to? Is it, a Facebook Messenger bot that answers people's questions immediately so that they know what you would say? Is it like BC Ferries? Okay, they have a Twitter account. Most of us who are in British Columbia can appreciate that BC Ferries is not lauded for its customer service. They're late, they're way too expensive. I'm not complaining about any of the lovely people that work for the ferry company. I'm just saying they're not known for exceptional customer service. But if you use their Twitter account, you will be pleasantly surprised every time. They figured out how to make Twitter a great tool to get back to people immediately. It's way better than calling. Don't bother calling. Don't bother checking their website. Just tweet them. You'll be really happy you did. So it's personal and interactive. Immediacy. 3, word of mouth. What is social media if not word of mouth? It is exactly the same as that old marketplace. And how are you going to take advantage of that? If you are building an online business, are you asking your clients and asking your customers and asking your students, hey, if you liked what I did, can you go to my Facebook page and just, share a little feedback comment for me? It's as simple as that. And that word of mouth is, again, an incredibly powerful tool for building your online business. And then there's that primal need to connect. And this harks back to the whole idea that we do not need to have everybody joining us. And yes, our story cake is going to reach a heck of a lot of people, but it's going to be your people. And it's a great way to think if you're going to eliminate some of that fear before going online. Because really, it's not about having everybody like you. It doesn't matter. You can release all of that stuff because it's truly about knowing your story, staying true to your story, and feel free to jump in anytime, Tina. I totally love it when you get that other side, the story side of it. But having that need for connection and knowing your story and being true to your story and allowing those people to see your story online through social media means that you are only going to attract the people that need what you have, that will want your product, your business will be important to them. So how great is that? You're eliminating objections in advance. It's probably the best use of social media, but it's just another part of that myth that people buy stuff. We don't.
That's a great one. Can I jump in a little bit?
Yeah.
I really, really love that piece. And I've never thought of it this way, that you are working through the objections using social media.
Absolutely.
And you're also building filters.
Oh yeah, baby.
I love that. I love that.
I'm a firm believer in making social work for you.
Yeah.
And I think, when I was speaking to Isabel about this, who's a branding expert that Tina and I are friends with, she says, so many people won't go online because they don't want to stand for something. And she always says, if you don't stand for something, she actually says you'll stand for it. Now, she mixes it up because she's French and she has the most hilarious way of, but if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And that's so true. So as you're building your story cake, and as you're building your social media sharing and your media company that you're going to present yourself to the world with, you want to start thinking, how can I be more human? Because I think a lot of people start to actually think, I need to look like a corporation. I need to look big if people are going to think I'm credible. If I'm not looking like I'm the big picture, they're not going to trust me. But it's actually the opposite. And so many brands, we're trying to coach them back down to be human again. And I have a friend who does website design. She was based in London, and she was headhunted and is now working in New York for Teachable, in fact. And she said when she first built her website, she tried to make herself look like this massive corporation, and she wrote everything in the we. Her story was completely misaligned with who she was. It wasn't. She's this adorable 23-year-old dancer who just happens to be brilliant at website design and teaching it to people. And so she said, she just kind of went, I don't know why I'm not getting good clients. I don't understand why my clients are all corporate jerks. These are not the people I want to work with. Because her story wasn't translating into what she was sharing online. So she was attracting all the wrong people for her.
Wow.
Changed it and owned it and made it about Jess, who is this amazing girl. She said, oh, it just, everything clicked. Everything clicked. And I know both you and I have gone through that as well. So we're just hoping to save you some of those steps as you grow online and give you permission to be yourself and to be human, because that is what people appreciate.
And from an efficiency perspective, because I'm all about efficiency, it's that idea, what you like, it's totally shifting the narrative of what we think about social media. Social media works for you. You don't work for it. And lots of people push back from social media because like, oh, then I have to do this. I'm hooked for that. And then that people can, it's like, no, put it to work for you. They're like little bots of you out there. I love that.
Amazing that once you understand, and I mean, we're going to go through having a plan too. That's part of it. You can't go on social and not have a plan. That's for sure. However, the big picture, which is what I'm going through with these myths, are that it's not so much what you think. You can make it work for you. It doesn't have to take a gajillion piles of time, and you don't have to fake it. I do use that term, fake it till you make it, but it's really more about faking that you know everything until you make yourself seen. It's not about faking who you are, because that doesn't work, and it'll backfire every time. You will attract the wrong clients. You will attract those clients who are more headache than they're worth, and you don't want that. You want to attract the people that are naturally drawn to you for you. All right, let's move on to myth number 4, unless somebody has a question, and then you can post that on the chat, and I'm happy to answer it. Oh, this is such an important one too. Myth number 4, it's just a brand. Now, we're going to spend a lot of time with you finding out what your brand is. And your brand is tied to your story. And your story is a reflection of your brand. And your story is you, and therefore your brand is part of you. This is so, so important when you are a solopreneur, as many of you are, and you're bringing that to the online space, and you're getting to that point where you're amplifying yourself and wanting everything to go according to the plan that you have way back when, you know, your little business plan, and you want to get this out there to the world, but it seems like, how on earth am I going to have this go to so many people? And you think, all right, I got to be a brand. I've got to be a brand. It is important to have your brand out there, and it is important to be true to that. But when you think of what a brand is, do you think about a logo? Do you think about the colors that you use? Is it, you know, the type of website that you have? We feel really, really strongly that your brand is how you leave people feeling. What is it that you do on every touch point that they cross paths with you that is truly you and considerate of how they feel? So what is it that you can do when you have these communications with everything in your company? So it doesn't matter what level of the cake you're working on. if it's a brand, it's actually a buddy. And social media and online marketing and digital marketing, it's all about allowing people to become friends with a brand. And it's harder than you think. And it's not always an easy transition to make. And you go back to those faces that you're willing to share publicly. Maybe there's faces of you that you don't want to share publicly, but your public wants to see that face. How are you going to juggle that? How are you going to make those touch points authentic and true, and yet still protect your own privacy and your own need to feel like you have a life that isn't online? It's a challenge and it's a balance, but it's totally doable when you go through all the steps and plan it ahead of time. So it is the small stuff. It's consistency. It's meaningful connections. It's knowing what your brand will stand for and what it won't stand for, and what that voice is that you're going to answer questions. Oh, here comes Tina. I actually was waiting. I was like, oh, I'm saying way too much stuff for her not to jump in. I just know.
No, I actually just had a question.
Oh, I love it.
So something that I do, as you know, that sometimes it feels kind of random for me, but I also recognize that part of my brand is that it's not that it's random, but it's happening right now. That's part of my
spontaneous. That is your brand,
right?
Yeah.
But there's something else that I do, and I'm wondering if this connects to this. One of the things I love about the way you work is that although you and I are spending lots of time talking about story, which is big and it feels kind of loose and it feels, like all encompassing, that you're a strategist. And so you know how sometimes I would do those Monster Mondays or Thespian Thursdays, like. Is that another way to create that connection of your internal brand to outside, like, and with strategy? It's like, oh, I get to theme my days that tells the world my brand and is also part of my strategy.
I totally think so. I think I can't remember the quote. I'm just reading a Tim Ferriss book, and there's a brilliant quote in it, and it all boils down to communication.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter. You can have the best, most brilliant, most giving plan in the world. And if you aren't able to communicate it clearly to the people who need it, want it, or have to have it,
right,
you have failed. So your brand mixed with your strategy is going, I know what my brand stands for. I know who I am. I know what I have to say. Your strategy is, how do I say it in such a way that it's going to be understood and heard by the people who need to hear it? So sometimes it's about listening and knowing what questions are being asked. Sometimes it's just about sitting back and watching this scene and seeing what other people are saying about your competition. So strategy might be naming something. That's consistency. Your Monster Mondays, that is consistency, because they knew on Monday, Tina was doing a live about the monster, whatever that monster was that week. So that's something that people would look forward to, and that brought that consistency. What about meaningful connection? How do you share that meaningful connection online? Well, what you would do is you would often bring in a conversation that somebody had just had with you and say, hey, I was just talking to so-and-so and this happened. This went down today. And you share your thoughts on it. So you're not just sharing a random post. And I think people do this a lot. Something in another article or a news item or a video will touch you in a certain way. And what a lot of people do is they reshare it. They go, here it is, boom, I'm resharing it. What they miss is the meaningful connection piece, which is what draws people to you. So what did you have to say about that? What was your reaction to that? How did that make you feel? What are the thoughts that came out of your head? And that's something that you do really well. And that's why people are drawn to you, because you were a natural connector and you say, this is how I felt. Now, how do you feel? And you're okay with that conversation. And a lot of brands have a really hard time with that, because what happens is after these years and years of bad marketing, quite frankly, brands got more interested in telling people what they needed, telling them, you need this, and not listening. And as soon as they stopped doing that, that's why we had the disconnect. So the brands and the humans that are doing well in social media and who are connecting, they're asking and they're listening instead of telling. And we both know that is way more important in communication. So that's part of that brand and understanding what social listening is. And that's all going to be something that we touch on.
Right. The other thing I just want to add in here too, and we're talking about sustainability. Now I'm 47 years old. So if I was doing my social media without listening, I'm only going to appeal to, frankly, my demographic, right? That's used to, as you just said, being told by brands, being told by brands, being told by brands. But if my business is going to be sustainable and I'm going to have this for the next 10, 20 years, I also need to be speaking to the generation that's on the way up. And they are more, right? They're more interested in people like being listened to. Well, frankly, we're all interested in being listened to, but it is about those.
They're more vocal about it though, and they're good at asking for that.
Yeah.
And they're also much better at being a little more selfish in a good way, to be quite honest. Like I think, and that can get me off on a whole other tangent about youth and social media. And I have a lot of opinions about that, but that's not what this is about. You're right though. We have to be able to listen to what people are saying about people. Okay, so companies that are doing what we do and getting more notoriety for it. Mm-hmm. What are people saying about them? What are they doing right? And way more importantly, what are they not doing right? What are they missing? Because that's where our strength comes in. What's our competition missing? And it's like, and then you break down every touch point. Okay, so with social media, we always have a strategic plan that touches on, if it's a big company, we'll think about, what's our voice? What's our message on LinkedIn? What's our message on Instagram? What's our message on Twitter? And we try and reach different people on those different platforms, because what's the point of speaking to the same crowd everywhere? You need to think strategically that way, but it's a touch point. And yes, it's a little different. And yeah, we might use different images or we might use a slightly different style, but it always goes back to our story. Mm-hmm. And if it's not true to the story, and if it's not true and authentic and based in what the most important values of that company or that entrepreneur are, it's not going to fly. It just doesn't work. And people will say, I've been spending thousands of dollars on Facebook ads and I've got no click-throughs. I'm like, that's because your ads are horrible.
Tell us what you really think.
Go ahead and stand on a platform in the middle of Times Square and shout a bunch of crap that nobody wants to hear, and everyone is going to walk by you because there's lots of other cool stuff to look at in Times Square. Well, Facebook is Times Square, my friends. Everybody is screaming at you from the tops of their lungs, and if you don't find those people, narrow in on what they want and what they need, you may as well forget it. So it sounds really cheesy, but it's all those little tiny touch points. And we'll talk a lot about that too. And it's not just about being online, is it, Tina? It's that online connection. We say this over and over again, social media is just one place to connect with people, but if you don't bring them to your real life, to the real you, to that offline touch point, you are not going to have that conversion that we obviously as business people need to see. Yeah. We're here because we want to make money doing what we love.
There's an interesting piece here that I don't think I've ever heard before. But it's like you want to set your social media up, or any of your media up, so that when a customer engages, you would actually be willing to have a conversation with them about what you posted. I'm not saying that we have the time for that. I'm not suggesting that at all. So put it in the strategy, but like really play it out person to person. Could I talk about this?
Okay. So person to person, do you, okay. This is why social media is the great eliminator, because there's a whole bunch of people that aren't going to waste your time if you're putting stuff out there that they don't agree with, they don't want to agree with, and it's done, it's gone. So if you're presenting as a businesswoman, if you're saying, I have something you need, this is different. I have a different take on it than anybody else you'll see out there. I can teach you something in a different way than anything else you're going to see. You need to be able to share that quickly,
Yep.
clearly, and
Yep.
with intent, like true intent. But man, that'll get rid of a pile of people right away. And then you actually will find that you do have time to connect with those people in real life. I have the most amazing collection of friends from my Instagram account. I have never, ever seen them on this planet face to face. Yet we have had some of the deepest, most meaningful conversations because we were drawn to each other by our Instagram accounts, things we've shared, honest posts that we've made. So it's that honesty piece, that integral, being true to your story.
Mm-hmm.
If you miss it, if you skip over it, you have to deal with a whole bunch of flack from that because you're going to attract people that are going to be a waste of your time. Social media is not a waste of time.
No.
Social media is a tool. You not editing and strategizing correctly will be a waste of your time. That is the waste of time. So, and I'm such a defender of that. I would put that on a t-shirt, baby. You know what I mean? Like, I'm so tired of people dissing social, and that's my own thing where I think, is what I'm doing worthwhile? And I truly believe it is because I feel that way about it. So you want to always be thinking it's not just a brand, it's a buddy. Be a buddy. Encourage that deeper engagement, and don't be shy if they show up. And that's why when you start at the top of the layer, when you're looking at that bottom layer where it's a whole pile of people, it's a bunch of people, and maybe it's not a huge commitment of your time or your energy, it still has to be true because that bottom layer of the cake is going to feed through, and there's going to be people that come from there that are in your top layer. So that message, although it's different, it's a different offering, it's a different piece, it's a different type of cake, it's a different piece of cake, it's still the same cake. So moving on, I'm hoping you know what? So let me just double check when you are using social media and you're using it as an effective tool, we want you to go into it feeling confident. We want you to feel like what you're presenting is true to your story, is part of your buddy brand. It's not about selling. It's not about looking at the numbers and wondering, oh my gosh, why have I not got 18,000 people? Honestly, most of the people who have really massive followings in social media are extremists in that they've either done something really rude and, impolite, so that gets them a lot of attention, or they're famous for whatever reason, or they've purchased them. A lot of people, and don't feel intimidated by that at all. It's never about the numbers. It's all about the quality and the depth of engagement that you get. And honestly, if you have 17,000 followers, how on earth are you ever going to feed those people in a way that feels good for you? So make sure that you're looking at your growth in terms of, yes, you want slow and steady growth. You want to be able to build connections, but you also want to remember that there's only a few people you need in the top of your layer cake that will really sustain your business. It's an 80-20 rule. 80% of the people are going to be a big pain. 20% will give you 80% of your profits. So it's awesome. So to feel confident, it's about building meaningful content. And Tina is the queen of meaningful content because she's going to take you through your story and through a series of steps and exercises and ways to build content that speaks to your true story and that we can divide up and put in different places on social media. Please, please, please don't go into the place of social thinking, oh, I can just post it to Facebook and then have it share on Twitter and share on Instagram. And it actually doesn't work that way. It's an ineffective use of your time. Remember, we always want to go back to our strategy. We want to build something that is true to us, authentic to what we want to say, connecting with the people we actually want to connect with. But doing something that's just share here, share there, posting because you need to post, it isn't going to work, and it's not going to build you the following that you want. And it definitely won't turn into people that convert into actual clients of yours. It just doesn't happen that way. So building that meaningful content, it's the time consuming part. We're not going to lie to you. That is the part where you have to, dig your heels in a little bit, put the time in, and it's not an overnight success. This course is not about knowing, oh yeah, I do this and tomorrow I'm going to have this many people signed up for my course. It doesn't work that way. And Tina and I know this from experience. However, we can take you through the just enough portion where you'll know what kind of content needs to go where and how to use it effectively. And then what questions are going to need to be asked to get people to that next level of engagement with you. What are things that you can do? What are shortcuts you can take within social media that will help you build an engagement that is actually people that you want to meet on the street? And I always think, whenever I take on a new client, I do always think to myself, is this somebody I would have over for dinner? It sounds a little crazy when you're building an online business and you're hoping to have thousands of people attracted to what you're doing, and maybe not the very bottom level of your cake. Maybe they're not all going to come to dinner, maybe a backyard barbecue. But the point is, you really want to attract the people that genuinely like you and appreciate you for what you do, so that when you're sharing this information with them, it resonates. They learn from you. They get it. They want more. They will be your biggest fans. That's part of why social media works so well, is not only are they going to buy your product, sign up for your class, engage in something that you want them to engage in, they're going to tell everybody else about it because they love what you do and it worked for them. So the more people, like when Tina said she has a 90% close rate, that's because the people that she's talking to already have been through several layers of connection with her. And so they already know she has the things they need to hear. And it just makes sense. We need to connect as people. They like her. Why would they not tell people? Why would they not sign up for what she wants to do and then tell other people about it? It makes sense. Think back to that medieval market. It's got to be meaningful. There has to be human touch points. There has to be feedback, immediate as possible. So it is really important to just think back and not get so overwhelmed and caught up. And of course, now my dogs are going to get super loud, and not get overwhelmed with all of the things that you hear. Because honestly, most of the stuff that's going around about what to do for your social media success is not true, or it's outdated. So give yourself a break, relax in that, knowing that a lot of the things that are circulating are just spam. What were you going to say, Miss Tina?
No, I'm not sure if you have a slide about key questions. So if you don't, just send it to me and I'll wrap up with some key questions for the diagnostic part, right? To be able to finish this section and go.
I do have a slide for key questions.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Are we at that? Let me know when we're at that point and I'll just jump in with some.
Okay. And then the other thing to think about with social media, and the things that you want to start gathering now and all the way through the course, is what are the questions that people always ask you? You are already an expert in your own field. You are already somebody who people look up to for whatever it is that you share with the world. So what are the questions that people are asking you all the time? You can build so much of your social media strategy by listing those questions and coming up with the answers. It's authentic helpfulness. It's something that will resonate with everybody in all those levels of touch points that we were talking about. And this is your biggest time saver. This is where you get to go, I'm off duty. I'm not on the computer. I don't have to be there all the time because I've already answered these questions. And everybody who goes to these answers, they're going to think I'm brilliant. It's done. I'm ahead of the game. And there's nothing better as an entrepreneur than feeling ahead of the game, because how often do we feel like we're way behind the 8 ball going, I just have to catch up. So that is another way that we hear you. We understand that you need ways to feel like you've got it all going on. And some days you will. So I think that is the end of mine, which takes us to, oh, that's not too bad. I didn't go over Tina, I didn't go over my time.
Woo! Look at that.
Believe it. I'm a little.
That's so great. Okay, well, let's wrap this up with some key questions, because what I love about you, Dee, and I think I actually think that social media can be super, like, it can feel really swampy sometimes, and I think it's because of the word social. And we know, like, social feels like it's kind of going everywhere, but it's not. It's going somewhere. So these are some key questions that that Deidre brought up that that you can really check into your social media and ask yourself and answer them. So number one is, have you found your social media home? Do you know which outlet feels like home for you? So for Deidre, it's clearly Instagram. For me, it's clearly Facebook. Where is yours? What feels like innate to you? Number two, check in, and this was that piece of, remember that story that Deidre told about when she wanted to build her Instagram thing and tried on somebody else's story instead of hers. So the question is, are you sharing your story? Or are you still just trying to make sure it's okay for you to be there, and you're throwing anything you can that you think might work? Are you sharing your actual story? Number three, this is a big one, because it's a how question, not an are question, as an are you. It's, how are you risking excluding people? How, which we're really saying is, how are you, what content are you putting out there that is narrowing the field to your specific?
Whoa, I love that. I love it when we listen to each other and get those, how are you? Say it again, Tina. Say it again.
How are you risking excluding people to get to your right people? So how are you risking?
And I don't want to get into the whole male-female discussion right now, but man, I think we can throw a generalization out there that as women, we tend to worry about that.
We do.
I feel as though that might be something that is a differentiator between male entrepreneurs and female entrepreneurs to an extent. And obviously that's a big, wide paintbrush, but there is that.
I mean, we bump into it every day. Like, and it might just be in our demographic, like our age group. I don't know. But either way, let's call it out, because we certainly bump into it every day.
Oh, absolutely. We're more worried about offending someone. We want to make sure everybody's okay. Is everybody okay?
Yeah.
Everybody.
Okay. Question number 4 is, what is your strategy? And if you can answer that, it's a good thing you're in the Grow program. What is your strategy? And do you know the difference when you post between listening or telling? Lastly, or two more questions, last 2 questions, is currently, is social media working for you, or are you working for it?
Oh, yeah.
You could also put it in the how is social media working for you to really articulate it. And the last one was that thing that you just said, which is your assignment is to go find out what are the questions people are already asking you, and are you sharing those, because that's what your audience already wants.
Yeah.
So those are your key questions for social media. Go have a pee break, and then we're going to get into the last big piece, which is, and it is a big piece. It's much more technical. It moves a lot faster. We don't have the time to kind of dive deep like we have in these 2 arenas, but we did dive deep in these 2 arenas because these are the building blocks of your online business. It's story and social. Story and social, because the social carries the story, so you can build the online program or build the platform, whatever it is that you're doing. So this next section is,
social doesn't have the story, it's gonna flop. And it doesn't matter how many tricks and things that you do, you can be running around in circles posting on everything. If your story's off, boom, not gonna work. So they depend on each other.
So get that pen and paper out for section 3, because section 3 is all architecture. It's all do this, then do this, then do this, then do this. This connects with this, connects with this, connects with this. You'll likely have a zillion questions, and flood us if you want, and we'll get to them. So go have a pee break. Let's come back. Let's take a little bit of a longer break, I think, this time, because we're 2 hours in now. So take 10 minutes and come back at 5 o'clock, and this is 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, on the hour. Let's say come back on the hour, and we'll be back with you for the diagnostic, the last piece, the architecture. Okay, see you soon.